What's going on, Internet? I'm Christopher Peterson, and you're listening to the Nerd EXP Gamecast. This week I'm hanging out with Steven.
Hey.
And Flia.
Hey.
Each week, members of the blogging community get together to go through this week's top entertainment headlines. The point of all this? To start a conversation and help you level up your game IQ. You guys might have heard me from a couple other episodes. If this is your first time, you're in for a treat. If you're a returning listener, thanks. If you like what we have to say, please like this episode if you're watching on YouTube, or rate us on iTunes, or leave a comment. This is Steven's first time, so he'll give just a little bit of background information on himself.
Okay, yeah, cool. I'm an IGNer. I've been using IGN for like almost 10 years. Had an account for about 5. I go by the username Blue Forever on IGN. And I'm an active video gamer. I play lots of movies, keep up on lots of entertainment. I regularly read IGN and the headlines for it. So I think I should be able to contribute a lot to this conversation.
Well, definitely glad to have you on. Wanted to hear what you have to say. And then our other first-timer, you might recognize him, is Flia from Not Another Castle podcast.
Yeah, it's just another Castle
sorry.
podcast. And we were the lately known as My IGN Nintendo podcast. So yes, how are you guys?
Doing great. We brought Lee on specifically for his robust Nintendo knowledge, which we will get to later. As always on Gamecast, readers come first. We had a question from My IGN user MK1982. He asks, what's the longest you've spent playing video games without taking a break in between? For me, I came home from school one day at like 2:30. My parents both worked from home. I was a latchkey kid. And my mom came home around like 9:30. And she's like, oh, how was your day? What'd you have for dinner? And I just kind of looked at her with a controller in hand and said, I'm really hungry. Because I had just sat down and played Final Fantasy VII from those 7 hours straight without even thinking about like food or water or doing anything else.
Nice choice of a game to play.
Thanks. What about you, Flia? Have you had a long session?
Yes, and it's a very particular one because it happened 2 things that I never did it before. The first one is I was in my home when the mailbox arrived with the PlayStation 2 copy of Devil May Cry 2. So I got the new game. I remember at that time. But it was early in the morning. It was 8:15, 8:20 from Saturday, I think. So I didn't have school or anything. So I fired up the game. But I made a mistake. When I fired up the game, I forgot to plug in the memory card. So I started playing the game. And I finished the game without even saving once. I started my gaming session at 8:40 or almost 9 o'clock. And I finished it at, I remember, I think 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was the first time that I started and finished a game without even saving once.
Yeah, that's commitment. I don't know if I would have powered through or just taken the loss of time.
Yeah, one thing is that you can pause the game. So when it was time to eat, I paused the game. I went to eat and then come back again, and then I finished it. And also, Devil May Cry 2 was way more easy than the first one. I did remember that.
What about you, Steven?
Well, I think all of us, to a certain extent, like, we eat and break sometimes to the bathroom and stuff like that. But if I were to say, like, a really, really long session, I marathoned Bioshock 2, like, 90% of it in one day. So that was, like, 10 hours of that, and it was just on some Saturday, and I went, like, straight hardcore, just, like, went right through it and just, like, demolished the thing. I did it almost in one day, and usually I sometimes end up taking a month or so to finish. a game, but I just did that, went through it in like one day, like 10 hours, boom, done.
All right.
Nice.
That's definitely a commitment. We got another question from another My Aging user. G6N3D says, what is your opinion of Lego games? For me, I played, the first one I played was Lego Batman 2. Everybody talked really highly about it. So I started to play it. And I don't know why, but it's almost like my brain doesn't work how they want it to. Because I would just get stuck on a screen because I didn't realize that I was supposed to destroy a hot dog cart and then rebuild it and turn it into a trampoline or something. So, like I would just spend, like not forever, but like 2-3 minutes with no progress. This happened to me a couple times in a row. And then by the time like the whole city open world kind of came up, I was just like, I'm not having fun with this. I know everybody else is, but it just didn't click with me the way I felt like it should have. Flia, do you have any experience with Lego games?
Yes, I think that is in my sort of way of thinking is the Lego games are some sort of spin-offs from original franchises. So I played the first time I played Lego games. I think it was a Lego Star Wars game, an old one. I think the first one. I mean, I think the game was released on the GameCube, if I'm not mistaken. So it was fun. One thing that like you put it here is that when you don't know how to advance in the story, but since it's a Lego game, you will certainly know that you have to break something in the environment to move on. So once you get the hang of it, every Lego game after that, after the first one, it becomes really a blast, and some are really, really good. For example, I'm trying to 100% Lego City Undercover in my Wii U, and it's a freaking amazing game. And I think it's one of the first Lego that truly has a truly open world. I mean, in like the GTA 5 way of open world. So it's a really cool game, a really cool franchise.
Yeah, no, everybody else seems to love them. And sometimes I feel bad that I don't. I just feel like I'm kind of this outsider to this Lego party. What about you, Steven? Do you have any experience or?
I haven't actually played any of the Lego games, but I think there's a lot of variance in how interesting the games are. Like, I personally don't have much interest in like a lot of the Lego superhero-ified games, like Lego Batman or something. Like, if I'm gonna play a game like that inspired off of some series, I'd probably just play something like Batman Arkham Asylum or something instead. But I would agree with like Flia a bit there about like Lego City Undercover looks really cool. So I think sometimes you can take a concept like Lego, and if you just kind of like ape a series too much, it almost becomes like an inferior version of it. But you can, if you take it and do something really unique with it, like what they did with Lego City, which is turn it into like a huge like open world environment, like GTA 5, which is really there's almost nothing like that for like Legos. And then they actually, in like Jurassic World, like there's not really many dinosaur games or something like that. Like they've created almost, when they create like this, find a unique market, like a niche, and then I think that's when the Lego games work the best.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, and I think that's one reason why they resonated with so many fans. Well, thank you, MK and GL for you guys' GI for your questions. If you want your question included on the Gamecast, hit us up at Twitter, Facebook, or on my AGN. Moving on to this week's news, PlayStation news. PlayStation recently announced PlayStation Vue. That's VUE, and it's basically a Comcast competitor in a nutshell. This is kind of the new brand of arms race for these giant tech companies, with the Apple TV, HBO, Showtime becoming their own little spin-offs. PlayStation Vue is introductory at $49.99, so I don't know if anybody would really consider this a competitive price compared to Comcast. But the promise is, and the hope is, one day to just kind of have these a la carte service where you only pay for the channels you want instead of having this bloated package. I personally, I've already cut the cord. I don't have Comcast in my house. I just have Netflix and Hulu and Crunchyroll, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So if PlayStation View or one of these services can offer something similar for cheaper, I'll jump on board. But if not, I'm fine. Do you guys care about this, or?
I think that it's like I always say, I don't know anything about that. I mean, I read the news, and I know that PlayStation going to launch PlayStation View, and I know the competitor too. But like I always say, in this type of things, the more competitors, the better. So I don't know if the price is right though, because it's a lot of money, but for that service. But I don't know. We have to see in time how it evolves.
I think in terms of value, a lot of these services like this are just like completely outdone by like stuff like Netflix, like or even Amazon Prime. Like I feel like cable companies and stuff like that are almost becoming outdated in themselves in terms of what they offer, in terms of actually like good content compared to, like I said, Netflix or Amazon Prime. So I'm not particularly interested in it, and the price is just way high compared to a lot of other services.
Yeah, I think price is really important, and I think price also kind of segues into our next story, which is Helldivers DLC for the PlayStation 4. This is a recently released kind of downloadable game that was $20 and is having DLC packs at $3. So it has 3 coming out. They're just extra skins and art, equipment and stratagems within the game. And if you get all 3, I mean, you're looking at $9. Which just feels like a quickly. Well, if you get all 3, it's $6. So I apologize. But it just feels like it's quickly like becoming bloated, and it's just a really interesting environment to see these smaller games getting into the add-on culture that we've seen with kind of the bigger releases.
Yeah, well, it's becoming a trend, like people buying DLC, people producing so much of it. The more people buy it, the more there's a market for it, and the more even these smaller companies are going to try and get their share of it.
So, moving on to our kind of cross-platform news. Project Ukulele. This is the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. Nothing really officially announced, but kind of a lot of digging going on from fans to try and put something together, and really hopeful that this game will become another Banjo-Kazooie style game.
Yeah.
Does that interest you, Steve?
Well, yeah, particularly. I'm like a huge Rareware fan, circa like 2000. Like, I've never actually played Banjo-Kazooie, but I've played like Conker, and I played Donkey Kong 64, and they were all like incredibly ambitious 3D worlds that really haven't been replicated all that well since. And that it's made up of a lot of Rare developers, former Rare developers, really excites me, because I don't find a lot of games like that anymore. And even the fact that like the hidden characters, stuff like that, the implications, they might be unlocked similar like Donkey Kong 64, that excites me as well.
Definitely sounds good. I mean,
yeah, the only thing that I can add in the matter is that I really hope that the developers behind this project are almost. I know that it's not the same team that they did the Banjo, but I think that if we find in this game some sort of spiritual successor, we will be fine.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. And for fans of the series, I hope that it does end up getting created. Even though Banjo-Kazooie never really resonated with me as much as I wish it had. Another series that's kind of seeing a revival that everybody predicted for a while is Rock Band 4. And as part of that, Harmonix is now created a fan page where you can request any song and artist that you want included with the game's release, either immediately or at some point DLC. They did create really spine print legalese that even if something does have a full blown victory, they still have to secure the rights. But this just kind of speaks to the crowdsourcing that Harmonix has done for their game, because even before Rock Band 4 was announced, they released a survey asking for people's feedback and what they wanted in the next game. Steven, do you have any experience with kind of the Rock Band franchise?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of experience with it. I play it a lot. It's probably Rock Band 3 is probably the game I played most out of any. I probably contributed at least 1,000 hours to it. I actually submitted a request for a song. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds song I requested. Babe, I'm on Fire. I requested that. But it does really show that Harmonix is definitely looking to see where their market is and what the potential market wants out of the product. And we've seen basically the collapse of the rhythm gaming genre, 2010 2008 area, and then it's basically Harmonixes have to go a little extra. They have to go the extra distance in order to try and rekindle that same sort of spirit for it. So I think that's the reason why we're seeing so much care in what they're asking or putting out these forums, doing stuff like that, because there really isn't that much of a market compared to a lot of other genres.
Yeah, I agree. They oversaturated the market and did it to themselves, and they waited long enough that I think fans are excited for the release, but I don't think that we'll ever see the music rhythm be what it was again. Moving on to another kind of franchise that's trying to be revived is Mortal Kombat X, MKX. Last Friday the 13th, they humorously released that Jason would be joining the cast, which kind of signals a long tradition of lately Mortal Kombat having ridiculous characters like Freddy Krueger or Spawn kind of join the cast of characters. Is this, just a quick straw poll, I didn't ask you guys before, when was the last Mortal Kombat game you guys played? Is Mortal Kombat still relevant?
I haven't played any of them. I played a lot of other games like Street Fighter and Soul Calibur 4, but no, I haven't played Mortal Kombat X. Or I mean not X, just any Mortal Kombat.
What about you, Flia?
I'm in that particular franchise, I'm really old school. I played Mortal Kombat, the first one, the second one, and I think the third one, and then I move on. I never played it again, the franchise.
I'm right there with you. When it went 3D, I left. I just didn't have any interest. And even back in the day, I was far more a Street Fighter kid than a Mortal Kombat. I just feel like you kind of either fell into one camp or the other. Another kind of just quick blurb about Mortal Kombat. They released today Quitalities, which is if you end up leaving a match in the middle of it, your character's head will explode. The concept is to try and reduce the number of rage quitters that are going to occur. So it'll be interesting just to see if that matters. I mean, you won't necessarily see the negative ramifications. For the, go on.
I think they could, I'm not saying that in particular that they should, but it surprises me that they haven't actually gone further with that kind of quitting technique. It's kind of like when they had piracy techniques before, where they gimp the features for when it's played or something. I almost I'm surprised they didn't leave the headlessness off for several future matches in the future.
That'd be a great concept. Just to warn people of, this guy's kind of douchey. Go on.
It doesn't seem to serve much purpose though if it just does it for that match. Especially if you just hit the power on the system. Maybe it reveals it a bit to the competitor, but if you never see them again, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Whereas if you kept it for 5 matches in the future, then that kind of embarrassment might actually be more of a reason not to quit.
No, I agree that's a great point. They said it will still impact your win-loss ratio, but I don't know how much of a factor that actually means in that game.
Yeah.
Moving on to kind of another announcement. Walking Dead Season 3 was officially announced at South by Southwest from Telltale. Surprising nobody. This was a no-brainer. This is their bread and butter franchise. They're doing great things with it. and I don't think anybody expected anything different. They did come out with a little bit more detail, saying that they're going to release a bridge between seasons 2 and 3, kind of how they did previously with 400 Days.
Yeah.
Another kind of franchise that we talked about previously, Lego Jurassic World, is getting announced.
Yeah, and particularly in that game, you have to mention that it also includes the 4 previous films in the game. So when you buy Lego Jurassic World, you will also be playing the first Jurassic Park, the second one, the third one, and the Lost World.
So that's great. Definitely great for Jurassic Park fans. I think this is a good offering and kind of combination for that. Are you guys excited for Jurassic? I know this is a little off games. Jurassic World coming out this summer, like the movie.
Yeah, I would probably buy it. Yeah, I'm interested.
I'm Jim Half.
Yeah, I'm excited about the movie a bit too. I like Chris Pratt in general. He's a cool character. I don't actually remember a whole lot about it, but I'm not actually one of the people who like hates Jurassic Park 3. Maybe because I saw it when I was like 10 or whatever, but I actually remember liking it, even though it's been so long. It's like a foggy, distant memory. So I don't kind of have like that negative connotation to the franchise a lot of people do after seeing Jurassic Park 3.
So, last bit of kind of cross-media news is a announcement that Kojima is going to leave Konami after Metal Gear Solid 5. Kojima's been with Konami forever, producing the Metal Gear franchise, and Konami's not the publisher they once were. I feel like in the Nintendo, Super Nintendo era, their title card appeared in front of almost every game, and they've lost that. And I mean, Kojima's more popular than Konami at this point, I feel. So I think this is going to be a huge blow. But and I have a couple other thoughts. But what are your thoughts on it, Fila?
Well, I think that I have always a question that I don't know if you guys know the answer, but I don't know if the publishing right of the Metal Gear Solid franchise belongs to Kojima itself or is from Konami. So if Kojima wants to still make Metal Gear Solid games, I think regardless if he doesn't work for Konami, I think Konami will be part of the game, or the rights, I think.
Yeah, I agree that Konami owns the rights to Metal Gear Solid. I can't imagine that. Just kind of like Miyamoto. Like, I mean, that's a Nintendo franchise. Like, yes, he created it and it's his baby, but the studio ultimately owns it.
Yeah, probably on another thing that I can say happy about it that he leaves Konami is that perhaps we now can see what he can do as a developer outside from Metal Gear Solid, from the Metal Gear franchise.
Maybe. I wonder if he'll just, leave games entirely, or I feel like he could have made a different game if he wanted to.
Yeah, he did another franchise. He did Zone of Enders. That is some sort of mech battling franchise. It's really cool. It's fun. But I want to see, for example, another creativity side points of Kojima.
I almost want to say, I wonder how serious this is. Because didn't Miyamoto, announce his retirement 3-4 years ago, and then, everybody had to backpedal on that?
Yeah, he still hasn't retired.
I remember also that day that the stock value of Nintendo shares were dropped. I don't know how many points. I didn't forget that because only the news that Nintendo was about to leave made the investors sell their actions in the stock market.
I mean, that's the problem, that's the double-edged sword of tying your company so closely to any one individual or any one property.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In some sort of way, Konami is Hideo Kojima because he's the only one popular inside that company. And in Nintendo, well, I think Miyamoto is Nintendo. The other guys are all aside of the role inside the company. I think that the philosophy of Nintendo is and always will be Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yeah, he's just too important to the company, Shigeru Miyamoto, at this point. Like, if he retires, like, I don't know what's going to happen to future Nintendo after that.
Whoa. Don't get ahead of ourselves. We'll get
Yeah.
to Nintendo soon.
Yeah. There's a couple of more years. I don't know, maybe 50 years more.
Yeah.
Moving on to Microsoft news. And these are both kind of wacky stories. I didn't really think about that until I saw these side by side. But Goat Simulator is coming out in April. This was previously a PC release. It was announced as part of kind of Xbox ID, which is kind of their indie program. Goat Simulator is just a wackadoo, crazy, trippy game that just kind of tries to make fun of all the other, train simulator, surgeon simulator games out there. Steve, have you ever played Goat Simulator or have any experience?
Yeah, I played that. It's not actually like it's a really fun kind of physics-based game. Like, if I had to complain about it though, it's just almost not much to do in it. But it's actually really fun for like 2 hours. There's actually like a lot of hidden depth though, especially if you try to accomplish everything that doesn't really appear at face value, which is where a lot of the replay value comes from, basically.
Yeah, that definitely looks like one of those games where if you play it yourself, you probably spend a lot of time into it. But if you open up a guide, you'll power right through it without thinking twice just to see a bunch of stuff.
Pretty much.
And then the other kind of wacky news for Microsoft is Conker is coming back when it comes to Project Spark on April 23rd, which was previously rumored. Conker is a foul-mouthed cartoon mascot that originally released on the Nintendo 64 of all places, and is a Rare franchise and just kind of followed Rare to Xbox. Steve, what are your thoughts on Conker's next outing?
Honestly, I don't want like anything to do with it. The first Conker game to me is like Citizen Kane. It doesn't need a sequel. It's a self-contained story. It doesn't need like Project Spark or anything like that, or any sort of timeline continuation. Like one of the commenters mentioned, it's like bringing Crash back and putting him in Little Big Planet. It's like it's best just left alone unless it's like someone's actually gonna do something extraordinary with it. That's how I feel about it.
What about
Agreed.
Oh, go on.
No. I said that I agree that I remember also playing the remaster version, the remaster version that was released on the Xbox. That was Conker Live and Reloaded, and it was a piece of crap of a game. So nothing compares what Rare did in the N64.
Figured it'd be like that.
And then they followed that up with Conker's Big Reunion, and it's going to be an episodic story set 10 years after Bad Fur Day. Like you said, like this just screams the game that nobody asked for.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think we need an episodic series, and the fact that they're setting it within like the same timeline, that just irks me more than even if they just made it into a separate game.
I'm really against the episodic games. Seriously. Why the hell release an episodic game? So wait until the final product is out and buy the full game. For example, what Capcom did with Resident Evil Revelations 2 now, I think that is really bad politics, and I think that it would be worse if we gamers support that type of games. Because I will never buy episodic games, regardless if it is from my favorite franchise. I will never support that type of games.
The bold statement. You bring up Capcom. I was thinking the exact same thing once you started talking. I do like the Telltale series. I think that they do have their place. but their release schedule is too sporadic, too over the place. And I do wish that they would like just code all 5 episodes and give them monthly, as opposed to this, well, they'll come out eventually type mentality. All right. So that wraps up the like kind of traditional news segments. So as always, we'll go through what we've been playing this past week. So Steven, what games have you been diving into?
Well, I was playing some Call of Duty 4 intermittently, but the main problem with that multiplayer and stuff like that, I have no idea why, but like most of the time, like 85% of the time, it doesn't even log in for like the online, so it's like the most broken thing ever to do with Call of Duty. So that's like, sometimes I like to sit there for like an hour trying to get that to work, but yeah, so that's pretty broken. Occasionally I do play a few matches.
Excuse me, Steven. Call of Duty 4, what is the subtitle of the game?
Modern Warfare.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah. But since that wasn't really working much, I didn't get much time on that. I did try out the Dragon Age Inquisition.
The free weekend?
Yeah, type thing. I didn't like what I played about it as much as like Origins. It kind of felt a bit more forced to me. But there again, I felt that way about BioWare games a bit more recently too. I'm more a fan of like the early 2000 BioWare games and stuff like that. Back near like when they started becoming popular. It does look great though. Like visually, it's like awesome, but it felt almost a bit more Mass Effect-ish to me than the same kind of like D&D that I'm used to.
I could definitely see that. I love Mass Effect, and I still like I hated Dragon Age Inquisition. I played 10 hours of it and realized that it was not doing what I needed it to. It was just too all over the place, no narrative, and I'm just surprised at how in love everybody ended up falling with it for being such a big, expansive world. It just ultimately felt empty.
Did you play Origins?
I did. Yeah, I played Origins. I felt like it had a better quest progression and interface, and just kind of, I remember going through Origins and being like, man, that's really interesting. Then I looked up and I was like, oh, holy shit, this story could have ended 12 different ways. So, anything else you've been playing that you want to call out?
Not too much. I have been playing Rock Band, but it's not in anticipation of Rock Band 4. It's just something I do as a passion. That's about it.
What about you, Flea? What games have you been diving into?
Yeah, I played 2 games this week, and I'm still playing it the hell out of it. I'm playing Monster Hunter 4 on my 3DS, my new 3DS, and I have also finished it. I started playing it today, and I finished it today because the overall gameplay is 2 hours. I downloaded Tengami for the Wii U eShop. It's a pretty cool game. I love the artistic style of the game and the way that the way that the game progresses and uses the origami culture paper to move on the story is really well done. And it's a particular game that can only be played on the Wii U and the PlayStation Vita because of the touchscreen options.
Definitely sounds interesting. I'll try and keep my eye on that. That's kind of slipped under my radar. For me, like, to be honest, I haven't been playing that much. I've been playing Hearthstone every morning over breakfast. And that's about it. I took on some freelance and put the show together, and like really diving into video game media as a hobby kind of doesn't leave as much time for video games after a full-time job and a wife and all that. So I'm gonna try and I've been doing this for about 2 weeks now. I'm gonna try and find a better balance and hopefully get into some more titles as time goes on.
Yeah, that's a key aspect, Christopher. Finding the right amount of balance and time. It's really difficult.
So, if you're familiar with the show, you realize that we completely skipped over Nintendo news, and you're probably screaming and freaking out. That's because Nintendo news is now topic of the week for this week. A couple days ago, I'm on the East Coast in America. Woke up to the news that Nintendo is doing what everybody has been screaming at them to do forever, and that is partnering with a company, in this case DeNA, a Japanese well-respected mobile developer, to release Nintendo franchises on smartphones and tablets.
Yes. And PC also.
And PC, thank you. I was going to kind of leave that hanging out there. But, I mean, that's something that's huge that's been flying under the radar. Most of the tweets and news stories I've seen on this is Nintendo on smartphones, Nintendo on smartphones. But it's also going to be Nintendo on PCs. And kind of a big aspect of this is Nintendo has gone out and said this will not be ports. This will not be the virtual console on your phone. This will be newly created original games tailor-made for that experience.
Yeah, for that specific platform. Yes, you're right.
Flia, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it was really surprisingly shocking because I woke up in the morning and the first thing that I do is check my newsletter newsfeed in my email that is officially from Nintendo. And when I read that Nintendo was making partnership with a cell phone mobile company, I was, what the hell is going on? So I started digging in and I went to the official press release PDF. You can also download it from the official Nintendo.com. And also then, after that, I watched the entire video of the presentation that is 1.5 hours. And I was really surprising. I'm not on the fence that I'm like a traditional Nintendo fanboy that says Nintendo has to do the system, blah, 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 everything else is bullshit. I think that is a good opportunity to see what they are capable of. But I was really surprising because I didn't imagine that they will do this too soon. I thought that it will come in another generation, you know, perhaps in 4 or 5 years, but not now.
Steve, what were your kind of initial thoughts?
I'm not there's probably a lot of good financial motivations behind it and stuff like that. I'm not the biggest fan of like Nintendo putting their stuff on mobile. It's kind of to me like if Sony started putting like Infamous on like a phone or like an iPhone or something. Like
I know it's not Infamous, but Sony did have this Ratchet and Clank Into the Nexus spin-off, like endless runner on mobile.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes it's just like I'd prefer just the IPs to stay where they are, but I do understand the financial motivations behind it. But there are already like a million like cell phone games out there with generic gameplay.
What I'm trying to understand for what you're saying, Steven, is that I think it's very difficult to port Infamous on a mobile phone. And more so how the game controls the camera and how much hardware capability you have to play the game. What I'm trying to say is that unique, exclusive, new type of titles from Nintendo on those specific devices will be cool. Porting a Nintendo game to those devices, that will never happen. Iwata said that already in the presentation.
Yeah. I admittedly haven't seen the presentation and stuff like that, but...
Yeah, and I think that's really the key is I have no expectation that we will see Super Mario Brothers 4 on your mobile device. That you're not going to see platformers, you're not going to see Star Fox.
I think that what, in my particular opinion, is that what we will see in this new type of media devices is some sort of spin-offs or different type of entries that uses this type of capabilities, I mean the touch screen and the click of the mouse in Nintendo's IP. But we will not see the Nintendo franchise like we know. If you want to see Nintendo franchise like we know, you have to buy their systems. There's no other way.
Which is why, like, I think ultimately this decision is so mixed for me personally. Because at first I'm like, man, Nintendo makes really great games, tight controls, beautiful worlds.
Yeah.
But then, if they're not, are they going to be able to make those games still on mobile? Or is it just going to be another is it going to be a Nintendo skin on existing franchises?
That's like kind of what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, with their Pokemon Match 3 game that just came out.
It's a difficult question. What I think is that, for example, Nintendo releases a new Super Mario games like they always do in the next system that they're going to develop, and they also release some sort of spin-off from all mobile devices or different devices. So in some sort of way, with a different protagonist, even so. For example, in the console version of the game, you have Mario, and in the mobile version, you have Luigi. And Luigi tells some sort of another adventure going on inside that adventure, and the main adventure, you still have to buy the Nintendo system to play it. That is some sort of way that I imagine Nintendo using their IPs.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into another reader question that I held back from MK1982. He says, Nintendo is a great software maker, but the recent consoles, while generally successful, have major failings or drawbacks that they later have to work around. What do we hope Nintendo does on home consoles or handhelds or software for their games moving forward? I know that's a lot to chew. I think for me, I think that it is creating Nintendo games first. I would much rather see a tight Mario platformer that the Wii U gamepad has no bearing on, that they just import the screen or status screen, and then as opposed to them trying to make games with these end uses in mind. I think that Nintendo, when the Wii first came out, great example, motion controls everywhere. But then I felt like they kind of sort of died down with that a little bit. And like when Smash Bros came out, it was just the game came first. And I think as long as they focus on that and that mentality, that they will still be able to kind of recover from this tailspin.
Yeah, but in a way that MK did the question, I don't see any problem in the handheld devices. I mean, the 3DS is selling strong. It has a huge advantage against the Vita. And software-wise, the system is really strong both in first, second, and third party. The problem, like we talk about in every episode in Just Another Castle in our podcast, is the hardware sales of the Wii U. But software-wise, the Wii U is a very strong system. In fact, in Metacritic average score, the Wii U software is way higher than all the competitors.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a great point that, Nintendo makes great games. They just don't make great hardware. And I think that's one reason why the other big pillar announcement that we saw from Nintendo, the Nintendo NX. What is this thing going to be? What does it mean? Did they announce it way too soon? I mean, PlayStation 5 is already in development somewhere. Like, Sony's already working on it. The Xbox 2, or whatever they end up calling it, is already being R&D'd. So the fact that Nintendo's working on a new console shouldn't surprise anybody. But just kind of with the quickness that they announced it surprised me. And one thing before I turn it over, I almost wonder if they announced the Nintendo NX or Nintendo crossover or whatever it's going to end up being to kind of appease fans of the traditional console market. So that way they kind of were like, hey, we're moving to smartphones. But don't worry, we're still here in the space that we created and made popular. So that way there wasn't so much of a panic about the initial smartphone PC announcement.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, agreed. Yes.
So, Flia, you saw the whole press conference. Like, what did they touch upon during that? Is there anything that, kind of resonated with you, or any questions or answers that you kind of...
Yeah, I think that what Iwata really wants to clarify the word is that he mentioned a lot of time the last press conference. I mean, the 2014 press conference of Nintendo, talking about how they will handle the mobile spaces and all the other new technologies. And he specifically said that the world is continuously evolving, and that in a way what they want to tackle in this type of in this fusion is the same way that Nintendo did with the TV years ago, and they tried to do the first console. Now they want to do the same revolutionary way, but with all these type of mobile technologies. That's what really caught my eye, in a way that he said, we acknowledge that the world now is full mobile, and we have a lot of tools in our cell phone now, and we can do a lot of things. So Nintendo acknowledged that, and we have been researching in that space for a long time, and now we are able to do this partnership to bring our IPs there.
Yeah,
it's not what I'm trying to say is that they are not doing this partnership now without doing any prior research. They have been researching on this subject, I think, for almost 15 years.
Yeah, I think that Nintendo has proven that they are not quick to react, and every decision that they make, they do it with purpose and because they believe in it. Sometimes the consumers don't believe in it, as we're seeing with the Wii U, but that even when they do make a questionable decision, it's never bad. Like, if somebody gave somebody a Wii U, or, I mean, the 3DS is still an amazing console. I know it's not selling as well as the DS did, but, I mean, sometimes these things go in ebb and flows. So I think Nintendo sometimes gets overly harsh criticism as far as this.
What I always want to point out, also to gamers and everyone that our listeners or your listener here in your podcast,
they're yours too right now.
Is that Nintendo really has a lot of money? So financially speaking, Nintendo, an analyst said that will go bankrupt on the year 2150 if they spend money from now on with all the money that they have. So it's not a problem about money. It's like you said, Nintendo is slow in movement regarding the competition. And it's, like I always point out, Nintendo moves on a different path. They don't move on the same path and drum beats like Microsoft and Sony does. Nintendo moves in their own path. And regardless, they acknowledge the competition, but they never care about them. They move in their path, in their world, in their philosophy.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that captures the heart of Nintendo, and sometimes that resonates with fans, and then other times it doesn't.
Yeah.
One final question, and I know this is going to be kind of pure speculation, but G6IN3D asks, what do we believe Project NX actually is? I almost think that this is going to be, and maybe this is just because I've heard this from so many other, journalists and everybody guessing. The 3DS, the DS, the Game Boy, Nintendo has always excelled at their mobile. Their console and the Wii hit that casual market, but the software didn't stay. The Wii U has great software, but not a good install base. But that handheld market cannot be stressed as important. How important it is owned by Nintendo. The Sony Vita is not even a laughable competition. It barely even exists on the same plane as the 3DS. And I own a Vita and I like it, but the 3DS is just on a completely different level. I think that whatever this NX is, it's going to be a handheld first that will then have some sort of streaming capabilities to your television. Kind of like how you can throw an iPad on an Apple TV to your television, or a Google Chromecast or a Fire Stick. I think that this will be a portable console that could then be used to leverage your HD TV if you wanted to play on a bigger screen. Any thoughts? Am I a crazy person?
No, you're not. No. I've always thought about, even before the Wii U released, that Nintendo will go with a hardware that will be both a hardware for your TV and also a mobile device. So probably this time around with all the new technologies that every day the chips are smaller and the capabilities and speeds are higher. So now you have a small mobile phone on the size of your hand and has 12 cores there and has 80 gigabytes of RAM. So now I think technologically speaking, we are capable, Nintendo is capable of bringing that type of device. I don't know the costs though.
Oh yeah, the costs are so far from now. And I don't even know what year this thing will come out in. 2017 at the earliest.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about this. Like it's the way it's like so close to like the DeNA partnership and stuff like that. There's a possibility it's got some kind of like you were saying, like some kind of like mobile tie-in stuff like that. I think it's too early for them to like announce a whole full-on home console without like alienating the market that's already there. I think it's too early for that. I'm really not sure what to think of it. It is kind of a surprise at this point. Yeah.
Sorry, just one quick. Alienate their audience. Maybe they will, but I think that the people who purchased a Wii U are Nintendo faithful, Nintendo hardcore. They believe in Nintendo, and they'll believe in Nintendo again for a second console if it comes out 5 years from now.
Yeah. I guess it really depends a lot of when they're planning on releasing it and stuff like that. It'll probably, if it is like something like 2017 or further, they probably won't be considered that much of a problem. Because the Wii U's already been out for a little while.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this subject?
No, the only thing that I want to add is that regardless of what I think about what Nintendo Next is, I think it's too soon in a way that perhaps even Nintendo will change their plans on how they will envision this hardware. I mean, they have an idea of how it's going to be now or they are planning, but they also changed their wheels in half of the development. They did that a lot of times in previous hardwares.
Yeah, and I think when the DS came out, it was originally said that it was going to be a third pillar, that it wouldn't necessarily replace the Game Boy Advance, that it would stand alongside it. Whatever the NX does end up being, it's going to replace something. It's not going to exist in parallel with the Wii U and the 3DS at the same time.
I think that's probably pretty likely, yeah.
So, if you guys liked what you heard today, let us know. I'm Chris Peterson. You can follow me on Twitter at NerdyXP. On my IGN, I'm NerdyXP. I also have a website that kind of mirrors a lot of my posts on my IGN. So if you're catching this there, that's you've already read it. If not, definitely check it out. If you want to hear more from Steven, you can check him out at
Blue Forever at IGN.
All right. If you want to hear more of Flia's thoughts, you can.
You can hear us because we also have a podcast from now. I think that we are going to 1.5, almost 2 years anniversary. That is just another caster podcast, and I'm Fliadaloisio from IGN, and thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing your Nintendo knowledge, and also just your 1.5 years of expertise of podcasting. Well, thank you, Steven.
Yeah, thanks to you too.
Thank you, Flia.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Steven.
And thank you out there for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode and that we helped you with your gaming IQ. Level up, friends.